The ACE program was the perfect complement to him at his biggest. After Rowley had won, he of course won in his first year, beating his alma mater Durfee, kept it all storybook, and then he became the director of the ACE program, which in Lexington, which for whatever reason has this big lab program, which includes this ACE program, which it's a state-funded thing, I believe. But Lexington, it had this ACE program where if you were thrown out of another high school in the area, your high school wouldn't take you back. This was one avenue that would take you. You would go. So Coach Farias really was, I mean, this was probably a very, very progressive program in 1981 where you're taking the biggest nutcases out of the mainstream and just forcing them to attend school but not really do anything. And oftentimes with kids like that, you're not just mean like that or a spaz like that or stupid like that unless there's some underlying issue. So Coach Farias, the ACE thing where the program just looked out over the student parking lot and he had that whole row of rooms down a dark corridor and all of these shady looking kids that, they had a metal detector up there that are getting thrown out of these neighboring high schools, and the craziest kids we knew. Coach Farias, and he was the right man for that job because he had the spine and the build for it. A kid wouldn't, even the craziest kids, Coach Farias could have run a prison like Joe Clark, who turned around, face side high. Joe Clark, he ran a big prison in New Jersey after Lean On Me. Yeah. And Coach Farias could have done something like that, because that's the type of leader he is. You can't just run a prison. But he definitely could, and he could have done a lot of things. He could have went Division I with Rowley, and he could have been a successful college coach.
Why didn't he?
He didn't because he had kids. He was, and he knew that he was happy where he was. The life of a college recruiter, a college assistant coach, half the year you're on the road meeting kids that may or may not come. And it's only gotten worse. But even back then, big time Big East basketball, he would have been...
He continued to be successful.
Yeah, and why didn't Coach Sullivan? Same thing, I think. You have to really think up front in your career you want to do that. And I think when you want to be a college coach, you're a coach first and a teacher second. And certainly, today. But yeah, Coach Farias was a teacher, and if he liked being the director of the ACE program. He could have went to college. He leaves Lexington, he uproots his kids, and then you're on the road all the time. And then it's really about career, and it's not about teaching. And that's something he would always say. He enjoyed the teaching aspect. For him, he was just taught by the best, and he was taught by the best, and he was a tough guy that had old school morals. He didn't drink growing up. Being a captain meant something to him. He liked girls and had been in 100 fights and did well at school, but he wanted something more of his life, and he knew basketball was the way to get it there, and Skip Karam is the guy that told him that, and he didn't lie, and he did it. And then he met Rowley, so he got that side, at Lexington, but he just ran it back. So it's a cool thing and that's what's so tragic about it, because it's over. It's
I was just going to say, he took something that he had learned and opened a new channel, a new road, okay?
A new flower.
Yes, of opportunity, okay, for kids that might not otherwise have that opportunity.
Yes.
And if you could somehow rephrase this, but
no, but think about it.
And that was severed.
Yeah, and we're talking about basketball kids that got a lot out of this program and got to play for Lexington, which is a big deal. Used to be a big deal. But that's not. I mean, when he really changed the kids, like you were saying, Lizzie. You know, when you get to the ACE program, and you're talking about the kids that no one understands and no one can figure out, and they're in all sorts of trouble. And more often than not, it's the worst stuff you can do at that age. Whether you're 16 and pregnant and you're in court all the time, you like skip school for long intervals of time, or you have a major drug problem, or you're selling a lot of drugs. Or it could be anything, or you could be 400 pounds and you can't get around. And it was a whole laundry list of different things. And they eventually, I mean, they dismantled that program and pushed him out of that 10 years ago before he got resigned. So, we should have known when an assistant principal in leaving, her last act was to defund ACE and rename it and force out Coach Farias. We should have known that the writing was kind of on the wall. Lexington kids and Lexington school systems aren't, or even though they should be, but that tough discipline isn't maybe really needed, or it's not. It's always needed, but it's not appreciated like it would be in other parts of the country and other parts of this area.
Valued. Value.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just all about why, my kid wants this. Why did he play? And then, well, now my kid doesn't play because this guy's an asshole. Why is he screaming all the time? Why is he swearing? I'm writing a letter.
I think the biggest obstacle that these kids are going to face, they grew up in that generation, is they were taught how to build confidence, but not character.
Yeah. Can I say?
Yeah. Confidence, but not character. You know what I mean by that? You're the best. Yeah. You're the best. You're the best. 7th place is still great. There are no winners. All right? Build up the confidence.
You can do, yeah.
But without the character that's
which comes from loss and sacrifice. Yeah, and it's a crying shame, and we're going to get our ass kicked in the next century, okay? India and China. China, you know those guys that do 30,000 engineers a month, they split out in college?
Don't belittle what it is that we're trying to express, because it has a message.
Wide-ranging implications. And this is the perfect microcosm, because this is Lexington. This is the best schools. This is a successful town full of successful people. And they expect success, and it's just like the bank bailout. Don't be naive and think this is a democracy or capitalism at this point. And it's just disturbing, because what everybody needs, banks included, is just get back to fundamentals and just get back to the basics. And there's no shortcuts. It just sucks, because he would raise men. You come out of there.
His success rate is unparalleled. As far as I couldn't even begin to come up with a figure of how many students' lives he bettered. Like as a teacher myself, I could come up with a list of probably 15 kids that I've made their lives significantly better, right? His is going to be in the thousands.
Thousands. It's a storybook too. Because like Coach Farias, when I got put in the ACE program, I lost 15 credits as a sophomore at the end of my sophomore year. I just gotten laid for the first time, and I was all excited. And my girl got out of school. She graduated like a month early, and I just stopped going. So as a freshman again, by credits, you need 88 to graduate. And they called this whole meeting, and I was put in ACE, and I was gonna be allowed to stay on track, and if I could somehow make up these credits. And there were all these avenues to do. And Coach Farias, the way that he would dole out the credits, it didn't come to the very end, and I always wondered what was going to happen. And it wasn't really until in his estimation, that I had earned these, he just made them magically appear, these 15 credits I needed. And it was cool, because it was the first time too in my life where I was like living completely like positive and clean on all karma fronts and just focused on the seriousness of life, you know. And then he gave me the credits, and then I graduated, and it just felt like, okay, you know, I learned something.
He helped
you know,
you
and
on
he
your
learned
way.
something too. You know,
He helped you on your way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you say that without the cigarette?
Oh yeah.
Just say.
He helped me on my way. Yeah. And we had the great, because he learned a lot too, you know what I mean? Our constant battles of, you know, friends and loyalties, and the genesis of the first book, there was a middle ground there for him, because I got to know him in a more intimate way. You know, the big basketball coach is now my teacher in this program, and it was fascinating to get to know him. We visited his mom in Fall River, you know, and I was just his boy. And it was great to know about his personal life. The man needed a couple friends.
That's great, man. This tape is gonna run out in about less than a minute. You don't even have to do anything. Titties, you know. But that was awesome. Awesome.
Awesome. I'm glad we did it.
No, dude, it was like.